Greetings! In today's video, I wanted to do an overview of various neon watercolors. This is not all the neon paints, but a selection of affordable and easy to find colors. What I want to do is that I want to swatch them out to see how they go down on the paper. I also want to put them under UV light to see how much they glow. The first set I have is this palette from Sakura Koi. They call it a creative art colors set, meaning it's made from colors that are relatively useless for a more classic approach to painting. Here I have 4 metallics and 8 neon colors. The box is the standard 12 colors Sakura Koi palette. It's white plastic and quite a nice sturdy box on its own. Inside, the tray is the usual thin plastic and it's glued to the bottom of the box. On the left are the 12 paint cakes labeled with a number. And on the right, there's a space for the water brush and a sponge. It can also double as a mixing space. As a quick aside, I took out the other Sakura Koi palette I have to show that they are basically the same hardware. The boxes and the trays are the same. The older palette came with a brush, a small container for water, and a tiny bottle, and the new palette has the water brush and the sponge. It's intentional, it's not because the other one is older and the new one is newer, it's just that the older palette I specifically chose the model with the real brush and the water container and the tiny bottle. So yeah, regardless of the difference between the brushes in both sets, the tray is exactly the same. You can see on the tray for the new palette that it still has that space for the brush, like I have in the other palette. For the swatching, I decided to pre-wet the paints. They re-wet okay, they are not super pigmented and kind of patchy in the application. The second set I have here is the Lumi Accent-Color set from Kisho. I've already reviewed this one, but I wanted to include it in this comparison video since it's relevant. Along with it, I'll be swatching this new set. It's made by Mozart, and they named it Komorebi. The pans are very similar to the pans in the Lumi Accent set. This new set has 6 colors as well, but they put a green and a blue in there, whereas the older set has an extra pink and orange instead. Both these sets re-wet super well. The Lumi colors were pretty smooth, but they dry with a small texture, kind of like granulation. The Komorebi paints were a good surprise. They were super strong and smooth and were really fun to use. The last set I have here for comparison is the Opera set of 14 colors from Paul Rubens. This set comes in tubes in a nice solid box. It also has a swatch card in the box. I will be pouring some of the paints in a palette to let dry. I want to paint the swatches from dry paint, so it's on the same level as the other paints I've swatched so far. The paints re-wet well and were pretty similar between each other when it came to swatching them. I mean, in terms of paint behavior. They were quite smooth, they gradated in pretty much the same way, and they kind of have the same level of re-wettability. This set with 14 colors has a lot of variety, mostly between the orange and the pink on the color wheel. Alright, so what I have here is the painted swatches, and also I have a UV light, which is why you can't see much right now because I made this super dark on purpose so we can really see which neon colors catch in the UV light. So I will start with the first swatches, the Sakura Koi set. So my UV light, let's go. Okay, so nothing with the metallics, that's not the point of this video anyway, but yeah, there's a there's a speck of paint here, I don't know if you can see, but and then the neon colors. So the yellow is really bright, the orange is super bright as well, this fluo red is nicely bright, fluo rose also, fluo magenta also good, the fluo violet is a bit more subtle than the others. I think it's fairly easy to see. And then we have the fluo blue, which is really glowy, and the fluo green, which is also very glowy. So all in all, I don't know if I can get all of them to sort of glow at once. I can't. So yeah. So that's it for these. They are nicely glowy, I gotta say. Except for the fluo violet. All right, next sheet. It's the Lumi Accent color and the Komorebi paints from Mozart. Again, UV light. So on the Lumi Accent side, they seem to be nicely glowy, right? It seems like the yellow and the oranges are quite catchy in the light, less so these two. But yeah, it's hard to say that this color is opera actually. Like, it doesn't come across as a very pink glow, it's a very orange glow. And this orange is like insane. Maybe it's because the light is closer, but it's still, whoa, this yellow is really insane too. Bright orange and the pink. And here I have the Mozart Komorebi colors. These, I gotta say, these were quite the surprise. These are so lovely. I don't know if you can see how this one has kind of a granulating texture a bit, which is super interesting. But these, the Komorebi ones, they were so smooth and nice, and like they glow so lovely too, especially that one. Wow. So yeah, really good results from these. And the blue is not the most glowy color, but it still has a good glow. If you compare it to the previous ones, like it's just a bit more glowy than the Sakura blue. Okay, up. Then we have the Paul Rubens opera colors. Okay, attention. Okay, careful. There we go. So the yellow, opera golden, opera orange red, opera orange, opera light red, opera red, rose, pink, peach, the violet, again, not very glowy. The purple also, like, it's not picking up much. This one, the opera ultramarine, I nothing happens. Opera blue, nothing. And then the green, we get some sort of reaction. So yeah, these three colors, the purple, ultramarine, and opera blue, nothing happens. Maybe the purple just a teeny tiny bit, but it's really faint. But the two blue, nothing is happening. Like, you don't see any glow. Whereas if you see, you can kind of see when I've sort of shown my light on one of these, there's a sort of leftover glow sometime that you can get. Or if I bring the light close, like, you can see that it starts glowing before I get to the swatch up here. But that doesn't happen with the colors at the bottom here. So yeah, again, kind of really nice and good glow, except for a few colors. So I don't know why. What's the point of calling these opera if you don't had plenty of UV reactive neon stuff in there? I don't know. Okay, last sheet I have is not a set per se, but is that I went through my palettes that I have to my paints, and I tried to find all the colors that I had on hand that had some sort of neon or fluorescent pigment in them. This is definitely not an exhaustive sampling, but it's just what I had on hand, what I keep with me. It's mostly opera rose, and there's a few violets, and there's one orange. So let's take a look. The first one here is Winsor & Newton Opera Rose. So it is glowy. There's definitely some fluorescent stuff in there, but not the most glowy of the colors. Then we have Schmincke Brilliant Opera Rose, which is a bit more glowy. Then Schmincke Brilliant Red Violet, which is really faint. I don't know if it will register on camera, but it has a bit of a glow. Then we have the Schmincke Blue Violet, which is a similar glow to the previous color, so really barely there. Then we have the Mugello, the Mugello Bright Opera, which is my favorite opera, just because it's so like ridiculously neon, and it's the least light fast of the colors, I think, possibly, or one of the least light fast. I'd have to check, but yeah, when it's something is that bright and that neon, you cannot rely on the light fastness of the paint, really. Then I have my other favorite, the Holbein Opera, which is also like really glowy. Sorry I moved fast between the two, but you can see that it's fairly similar. Then we have another Holbein color. This one is Bright Rose. So this one glows a bit more orange, the Opera, and then the Bright Rose has a more of a pink glow. Then I have Holbein Bright Violet, which is really, really faint. And the last color I have is Kusakabe's Passion Orange, which is quite neon when you see it not under UV light, but apparently it doesn't have a lot of that UV reactive fluorescent stuff in there. So I will open up the lights and we can take a look at these under normal lighting just to see what they're at. Alright, so going over these again with my impressions of the set. I know this is not a painting, this is just swatching, but still there's a bit of info to gather from these swatches regardless. So the Sakura Koi set, not very impressed, I gotta say, in terms of paint application, because it's really patchy. It's really difficult to get a smooth gradient with the fluorescent color I found. The silver, well, the sort of shimmery colors, they call those metallics, but it's more of a shimmer, right? These colors were a bit more smooth for the application, but the neon colors were really more difficult to get a nice gradated wash. They have a good pickup of the UV light, as we saw, but except for this one, I think. But the blue and the green were quite nice, but yeah, they're difficult to use, so I don't know if I would recommend these. The next swatches is the Lumi Accent Color and the Mozart Komorebi Neon Set. I really like these two. I think the Komorebi is really... I think they're the smoothest I've swatched. Like, they made for a really nice soft gradient. There is no texture. Not that I don't like the texture, but these were really smooth and they made a really nice gradated wash. The Lumi Accent I also love a lot. I like the colors available from this palette because I don't think personally that you need a neon green and a neon blue. That's just my 2 cents, but if you have a phthalo green blue shade, you can mix it with the yellow and you're gonna get a bright, vibrant sort of neon green. And phthalo green, if you dilute it a bit, phthalo blue-green shade, if you dilute it a bit, it kind of looks neon already. You know, in that sort of same, it has that same energy, so the same vibrancy. So I would prefer to have this assortment and add my phthalo blue than have a bunch of neon blue that don't really react like these, but we'll talk about these after. So, love the Lumi Accent set, love the Komorebi set. I'm super excited to paint with these. The Komorebi set seems to be the most transparent too. Like there's a tiny bit of residue on the black swatch, but so far it has like the most subtle residue. This one is a bit more visible, and the Sakura Koi is definitely visible. Alright. Next we have the Paul Rubens colors. Looking at them under regular lighting kind of makes certain colors appear really not neon one bit. Like the opera red, I don't remember, hold on, I will quickly check. Yeah, the opera red glows under UV light quite nicely, but if you look at it under regular light, it just looks like any other red. Whereas if you look at the Mozart neon red, that's kind of the color I know personally to be neon red. So this is kind of a red that glows, but not necessarily a neon color anyway. It's interesting though, because it really catches strongly in the UV light, so you can make some really interesting effects with this paint. In a regular painting it would look like any red paint, but if you would flash a UV light on it, it would glow, so you can probably make some stuff with that. So yeah, these three colors were the least glowy. I don't think these paints came with any sort of pigment information as far as I can tell, so there's that, but I would assume that this opera ultramarine is ultramarine. Like it looks like the regular pigment for ultramarine, so that's not exactly a surprise, and it didn't catch on the UV light at all, so kind of looks just like any regular ultramarine. In terms of residue on the black part, there's a small residue, a bit like the Mozart Komorebi paints, except for the well, I think it's there. I think it's just harder to see. Yeah, okay. But yeah, the trace, the leftover for the purple, the ultramarine, the blue, and the violet is really more subtle than for the other colors. And finally, my sheet of extra colors. Could be interesting just to compare a bit. Let's keep these. I'm not gonna, well, maybe I should, but yeah, put in the Sakura colors. Just trying to see how these, like the fluo rose, it's definitely, I don't know if it will show on camera though, but in person it's definitely more of that punchy neon color than any of the opera pinks I have on there. And it is the same for this opera pink from Paul Rubens. Of course, all the colors here are named opera something. But yeah, the opera rose is sort of similar with certain other opera colors I've tested, but these two seem to be a bit more bright and have that neon glow to them. And finally this, yeah, I think that with the Lumi Accent and the Mozart Komorebi colors, you can kind of see, I don't know if you try to fit this in, but there's really not that many colors that, no, they don't match. Like everything here is a bit more muted than what I have here, even if the hue is very similar. Like the neon pink I have here and the opera I have here are really more punchy and really more pink. This color, the rose, is more of a purple, like a faint purple color. And there's not really any match for these. This orange is super punchy compared to other regular oranges, but it's nothing compared to the oranges I have here. Like, this is really, really bright, and this also is really, really bright. Well, this one looks really muted in comparison, which is a bit silly. All in all, looking at all of these, I would definitely recommend the Komorebi, the Lumi Accent, and the Paul Rubens set if you are interested in getting neon color. I think the Komorebi is a really good catch Like, it's not expensive, the colors are great, and they're versatile, and you can sort of mix them together to get other colors. So that you can sort of cover up the colors you have here that are not there. The Lumi Accent color is also lovely, but I think it tends to be a bit more expensive. So that would be the only thing about it that's a bit negative. I would personally not recommend the Sakura Koi colors. I find these to be too patchy and not very, like, they have that Sakura Koi chalkiness in my opinion, so I don't really like how they look personally. All the other neon set I've tried I find really interesting, and they really have something to them that might be worth looking into it. Like I said, especially the Komorebi set, because I think it's the easiest to find for now on Amazon, and it's really, really affordable. Is there any of these colors that speaks to you particularly? Do you have a favorite in there? Do you often try your colors with a UV light? That's always really fun, seriously. It's really interesting to see what colors pick up the UV or which don't, and sometimes you have some unexpected surprises. So yeah, let me know in the comments below, and thank you very much for watching. Take care, bye bye.